Hey, I hope you had a good half term. Must have made a nice change to be at home with the family after the last 12 weeks of being at home with the family. I had a whole other video planned for you this week, but I decided to change that because I think it's important that we talk about some of the stuff that's been going on in the news lately. Some of you might be aware that there's been protests going on right across America and since then all around the world, including here in Bristol, against the violence that's been committed by the American police force against black people. And it's become this kind of whole movement that's about racial justice, that's about ending racism in America. Now, I'm not going to talk particularly here about the specific incidents that have led up to these protests. I think that's something that if you have questions about them, that you work through with your parents or someone who's actually in the room with you, rather than just doing it over a YouTube video. But it's not just an American problem, it's not just a problem with the police. Racism is over here too. And I'll be honest with you, I probably spent the last 6 hours trying to film this video, and everything I've filmed so far I've pretty much deleted because I've never experienced racial injustice in my life. I've never gone outside my house and had other people treat me differently because of the colour of my skin. I've never had to worry about whether the police will treat me fairly or whether I'll get a job interview or whether people I love might be harmed. But there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people in our country, and that's their reality. They live in fear. They live in an unfair system that is set up for them to fail. And that's wrong. And I don't feel equipped really to tell that story, but we need to acknowledge it's wrong. And so I'm not going to do much with this video today. I'm just going to say a prayer for you, for your generation, that you would be a generation that changes this situation, that seeks justice. And we're going to just quickly look at a piece of the Bible that might help us on our way. The Bible verse is a really lovely one. It comes from the book of Micah in the Old Testament, chapter 6 and verse 8. And it says this: God has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now, I've made this Venn diagram here to kind of illustrate this verse a bit more. I want you to imagine that God is calling us to live our lives right in the middle of this Venn diagram here, where we're not just acting with justice, we're not just loving mercy, we're not just walking humbly with God, but we are doing all three at all times and in all situations. Now, when we see injustice in the world, when we see people being oppressed and downtrodden, that should make us angry. It's right that that should make us roar for justice. But justice without a love of mercy and without a humility before God can be punitive. Now, punitive just means concerned with punishment. It means vengeance. And justice is not about vengeance. Justice is about restoring power to people who've been stripped of power. Justice is about restoration, and it's about communities being made whole again. Similarly, it's good to have a love of mercy, but if we just spend all our time hanging out up in that yellow zone and we don't long for things to change, we don't long for injustices to be righted, then we are permissive. Sometimes action is necessary. Sometimes you need to speak up. Sometimes leaders who oppress people need to be removed. Now, I hope you've realised that by now I just think that walking with God is life's biggest adventure. But that doesn't mean that we just get to stay in church while the world around us burns. It's quite the opposite. And unfortunately, in the past, the church has been guilty of being passive on issues of justice. Often Christians have not stood up and have not left the church pews in order to fight on behalf of people who are oppressed. And that's wrong. We need to be acting with justice and loving mercy in our actions as well as in our prayers. If you've been really moved by what you've seen, maybe on the news lately, or if you're someone who has a real heart for justice, then I'd love to pray for you now. I've written a prayer that's based on that verse, Micah 6, verse 8. And maybe if you'd like to pray for justice, for mercy and for humility before God, then maybe now you could just shut your eyes and you could either try standing up or opening your hands just to show God that you want this, that this is for you. So I'm just going to read this prayer, and if you would like to, just make it your own prayer. Father, I pray that this generation would be ravenous for justice, that they would be moved to action by the sting of injustice wherever they see it. Father, I pray that these young people would have tender hearts, that they would be the first to offer mercy both to those who are oppressed and those who oppress. Father, I pray that this generation would know your kind heart. We have been told all our lives to make others proud and to be proud of ourselves. Father, may our young people be humble, knowing that change happens only in your strength. That's it from me this week. Hope you have a great week. I know most of you are back to schoolwork. I hope that all goes well. I'm going to be praying for you and also praying this prayer as well. For those who have just prayed that, I'm going to continue to bless you in that. And I'll see you soon. Bye.